Hello. It's 95 or so on my back porch. Uh, Feeling nice and toasty. So, this story is called Sweets, and it takes place in late 19th century Paris and is from my collection called Tales of France. All of the stories are take place in late 19th century France. Okay, so here is Sweets. Well, no. Um, I'm going to read a story called The Thousand Francs, and it's also from Tales of France and takes place in late 19th century uh, France. So here we go The Thousand Francs. Jacques Charcot stood in the middle of the single room thinking. He was drawing close to 5 and 50, and each year showed as a wrinkle on his forehead. He still had hair on the back of his neck, but was smooth otherwise. He had a habit of snarling, raising the left side of his upper lip. He stood short and squat with massive hands that had swung many a pick in the mines deep below the surrounding bleak lands of the Tower of Le Fleur. Still, he carried the marks of soot embedded into his fingers, and a long, angry scar on his forehead, suffered during a rockfall. His wife, that nosy bitch Ursuline, was out and about on this cold November day in quest for eggs and a little butter. Jacques had been searching his humble abode for the past 6 months, but he would not give up. A sudden thought came, and he rushed to the clay vinegar jar and lifted the lid. Perhaps she had fastened it there, but he was once more disappointed. He sat on one of the two straw-bottomed chairs and racked his brains, for he knew that the 1,000 francs were in that house. She had hidden it from him and boasted of her cleverness, which was driving him mad. He wiped his running nose on the sleeve of his tattered woolen jacket. There was a fire in the stove, but there was no more coal, and he wished to buy more. A pot of water for coffee bubbled on top. He let out a long breath like a cloud of cigar smoke and drew his hands inside his sleeves. It wasn't that he wanted to spend the money, although he would surely pay to have the roof fixed, but he could not stand the idea that Ursuline had outwitted him. He felt the cramp in his belly and lifted his leg, laughing at himself, basking in his own stench. He had turned over every flagstone, searched every drawer, and even had examined the gaps between the poles in the roof. She was a witch, this wife of his. To make use of Ursuline's absence, he decided to check the battered wardrobe. The only furniture other than the bed of iron, the two chairs, and a table made from an old door. A lonely, blackened crucifix clung to the wall. As he was searching the pockets of Ursuline's two spare dresses, she barged in. Caught! Ha! Still looking, you old fool, said Ursuline. She held a basket with 4 eggs, but there had been no butter. Ursuline was shorter than her husband and twice as round. Her cheeks, red as if whipped, made her swallow. Her sallow nose seemed dead. Even though they lived on a starvation diet, having an income of 350 francs per year from the mine's pension fund, the two seemed rather fat, and this made others wonder. The stash of the 1,000 francs was no secret to the townspeople, and perhaps there was more. "Oh, you scoundrel, I shall find it. You move it about, you know you do. I shall find it or die." He puffed, angry, and shut the wardrobe door. "I shall go for a walk, and I expect my bread upon return. Next, you'll be hiding that." Ursuline grinned. "You old fool. We shall have eggs for breakfast, and you can have your bread as well." Thank God for his kindness. "Eggs, eggs," said Jacques, putting on his coat, just scraps of old curtains sewn together. "I shall return and begin my search anew, so hide it well, my dear, hide it well." He opened the drafty door and put his head down into the brisk breeze. Ursuline hurried to fry the eggs, still warm in the basket, before the fire expired. She removed the pan of hot water and measured out a single spoon of coffee to steep. She then rubbed a lump of pig fat in an iron pan and cracked the eggs. She still had a bit of salt and threw in a pinch. His eggs would be cold, but so be it. The 1,000 francs had been her inheritance from her dear old mother, who had died 6 months prior. She had taken to her bed one day with a mighty fever and was gone before nightfall. Ursuline's mother had liked Jacques when he was younger, but she grew to hate him, his peering beady eyes and gassiness. "Don't you give him a sou," had been her parting words, and Ursuline aimed to respect her mother's wishes. Dressed like a farmer's wife, her tattered hem rubbing the cold flagstones, she wore a dirty green velvet jacket over an old wool sweater. She owned neither hat nor gloves, but once her husband was dead, she would buy them. Jacques took his route past a lumber yard and a pile of old railroad equipment rusting in the biting chill. Often he imagined that Ursuline had hidden the money there, among the cast-off machinery and railroad ties. He had searched but had found nothing. He constantly worried that someone would find the money, and then they would both be robbed. He came upon the Darjean children playing with a barrel hoop and ignored their jeers. "He's looking for the money, he is," said the oldest, who then made a rude sound to the delight of others. At the mercy of children, what could be worse? In the distance, over a rolling plain, he could see the mine works and wished he were down below where it was warmer. The men had begun the day shift and no one was about except old hags and children, most wives being careful to keep the houses shut up, to keep in the heat if there was any. Thinking of his 2 daughters, both married to miners, he wondered if they would be subject to the same miserable life that had been his. If only there were some progress, some evidence that breaking his soul for coal had rendered more good for his children. But alas, there was only that shaft into the earth, taking men to the black, glistening seams. A tear squeezed out, blurring his vision. His mind wandered back to Ursuline. Before the children they had been so happy. Neither had brought any capital to the marriage, and they had lived on love alone. She had been such a pretty thing with a soft white neck. She had been a virgin, for his mother-in-law told him so. He walked farther afield beyond the last hovels, passing pastures of dead grass and a lonely chestnut tree. His life wounded him, and all he wanted was peace. But Ursuline stood in his way. He drew a deep breath and coughed. Back home, the fire just a pile of warm embers. Jacques removed his coat and hung it on a nail. Perhaps she had dug a hole in the plaster and then covered it. He had looked behind the crucifix and saw no marks, but he would have to go over the walls carefully. He took his place at the table, 2 fried eggs lying on a broken plate with a small piece of unbuttered bread. He grunted an appreciative word for Ursuline. "So you've had your walk, old man," she said. "Do a bit of thinking, did you?" "Oh, it's hidden, well hidden. Ha! It makes me happy. Gives me joy to have that 1,000 francs as my own. You would spend it, no doubt. You would drink it away in cider and brandy at Lepentera. I know you, you old... Hold your tongue." Jacques' eyes trembled and ticked. "I'll eat my eggs in peace, you old wench. I will find it in God's time. I have been praying, no less. You should be ashamed. We are married, and what's mine is yours, and so should it be in reverse." He tapped his fork on the plate, a red flush coming to his face. He lifted his leg. "There you go, you old locomotive, fouling the house, like an old mother cow. Oh, you disgrace me." She poured 2 cups of coffee. "Here's your coffee, and I shall open the door." Jacques pounded the table. "You shall not open the door. You shall freeze us. I will beat you as I have done before." His last words came in a low, desperate tone. He finished his breakfast and coffee, feeling belligerent. He had 30 sous and decided to spend some time at Lepentera. He would have a sympathetic ear, no doubt, as he sipped his brandy. Without a word, his eyes scanning the nearest damp wall for imperfections, he put on his coat once more and left. "Begone with you, you gas bag." Ursuline laughed. Spring arrived. Production at the mine was up due to new steam-powered drills, but the men of the town were worried for their jobs. There had been a near riot when the mine proposed increasing the cartage fee. The miners had to pay from their wages to have the coal carted topside. The company had backed down, the owner, Monsieur de Barleben, fearing a strike. The weather mellowed, warm winds passing over the bare fields. The women once more gathered at the town's 2 wells to chat and pass the time, while the men worked. Ursuline stood about with her compatriots, wearing her sad blue dress that did not cover her manly arms. A patched bonnet wrapped her head. "If he would do some work, he would not worry about the money," said Ursuline. "He is useless. He could do like Lantier's husband, with only 1 leg, mind you, and scavenge for mushrooms. But no, he sits about the house, turning it upside down when I leave. Why, at this moment he is clawing at the walls, I know it." She cackled like a fat hen. Ears listened, but they were jealous of this secret 1,000 francs. The Gascon woman spoke. She was tall and gangly like a dried cornstalk. "If I had 1,000 francs, I'd use it to draw some interest. It is foolish to hide such a sum." "Ha," said Ursuline. "Why, you yourself said the other day that you would buy your daughter a wedding dress with gold thread. You are a liar, no doubt." Ursuline sat on the edge of the well, shifting her stumpy legs. "A liar? You are using strong words, madam. You will repent," said the Gascon woman. "Oh, come now," said another missus called the Goat, for she had whiskers. "One would only hope that such a fortune could be shared. If it were I would share it with the poor orphans looked after by Father Huigot." She folded her long arms across her flat chest. A little girl of 3 tugged at her dress, wanting the breast. "Share," said Ursuline. "Who has ever shared with the likes of my poor husband or me? Do my children ever bring me a lump of coal or a clean dish rag? No. If there is to be sharing, then all must share. The Bible stands on it." The Gascon woman cleared her throat and spit at the base of the well. So now you have the Bible on your side. What drudgery you make of the Scriptures. You shall be punished. Am I not already punished? What has God done for me? Said Ursuline. He has given you 1,000 francs, said another woman, the wife of the town drunk. My mother gave that to me. My dear mother and God had little to do with it. Ursuline hopped down from the well. I shall be going. I suffer too much. She waddled away toward home, skirting a large puddle of mud. In the poor house, with its disintegrating tile roof, Jacques was under the bed, looking for tears in the mattress. He held a candle with which to see better. The cold flagstones felt good on his sore back, and he espied a small rent. A thrill rushed through him as he poked his finger into the hole, but he felt nothing other than the corn shucks which filled the mattress. Perhaps the money had become lost inside. He would need an excuse to tear open the sordid mattress. With the 1,000 francs, they could buy a new bed, a larger bed that didn't hurt his back. Ursuline crept up to the door, careful to avoid the dirty window. She pushed down on the latch and rushed in with such a frenzy that she nearly fell. He was under the bed. What are you doing? She asked. Have you fallen and broken your neck? She rubbed her hands together. Jacques slid out from under the bed, gasping for breath. He turned to his stomach and stood with little grace. He had to go back to his knees to retrieve the candle. I'm looking for bed bugs. I felt a terrible itch in the night. He grinned, his yellow teeth showing. No doubt you itch, for you need to take a bath in the river, said Ursuline. She hobbled to a chair and sat. Upon the table was the town crier known as Réveillé, printed by the mine, which cost 20 centimes. She could not read and tapped her fingers upon it. He walked over and sat with her. He put his hand on her hand. She looked at him with alarm, as if he would lash out. He had had an idea during the night, but it seemed improbable, and there was only one way to find out, although it revolted him. Looking her in the face, he said, Let's worry no more about the money. We are husband and wife and should put this behind us. The money is yours, and for it I will look no longer. Has not the priest denounced covetousness? I have been wrong in my actions. He wanted to lift his leg, but refrained. Ursuline was astonished at this soliloquy of his. Are you now cured of your fever? I do not believe it. She withdrew her hand from his, feeling his eyes upon her as a greedy child in a candy shop. We're not so old, you know. In our younger days we lived by passion. We cared not for the fruit of the earth, only for our embraces. He smiled as best he could. He moved his foot so that it was touching hers. A mild panic overcame Ursuline. Yes, the children ruined that. You know it is true. You began to see me merely as a beast of burden, a bearer of children, but that is the way of nature. A little tear came to her right eye, which burned her. I have a small present for you, he said. He lifted the newspaper, and beneath was a violet pressed to a card. I have little to give, but with this I show that I still love you. Ursuline's mouth dropped. She had not received a present from him since he used to bring her pears, which she so much loved. This small token, this pressed violet, made her weep. Jacques pulled his chair closer and put his arm around her. He felt her melting beneath his touch, which he had so long withheld. He fought the urge to lift his leg, and in this manner the 1,000 francs were soon discovered. Ah, the 1,000 francs. Hidden no more.